So today in class we were talking about ourself. When we talk about personality and the self is an individual's awareness of their own personal characteristics and level of functioning. All of you have an awareness of yourself, your characteristics, and your level of functioning. And as you can see in the picture, she has a whole bunch of her traits written on her hand, and it also says know thyself. Okay. When we talk about the real self and the ideal self, do not forget that Carl Rogers is going to discuss these theories, and it's dealing with self-concept. So when we talk about our real self, it's one's perception of actual characteristics that we have, our traits and our abilities, okay? And the ideal self is one's perception of whom one should be or would like to be, okay? I always think of the real self as where exactly you are right now in life, and then I always think of the ideal self as your goal or who you want to be, what you are striving for. And when we talk about the ideal self and the real self, Carl Rogers is going to stress that the ideal self and the real self have to be very close or similar to each other, okay? And when they are similar and close, people feel confident or we feel capable, okay? And when there is a mismatch between real self and ideal self, anxiety can result or discontent. So it says once again, that they talk about how if you feel like the person's view, like if your view of self is distorted or the ideal self is impossible to attain, that's when problems can arise for individuals. It also plays into the fact that, important people can either be good or bad influences in your life. And in a person's life, they react to the person that determines the degree of agreement between real and ideal selves. So Carl Rogers also emphasizes that the significant figures in your life can affect the relationship between your real self and your ideal self. So that's referring back to self-concept. When we talk about significant individuals, grandparents, parents, that those interactions with them have helped give you an image of yourself. And here's a chart showing the ideal self and the real self. And if you have a match, then you're having harmony in your life. And then if there's a little bit more of a distance between your ideal self and your real self, a mismatch, you can have anxiety. Also, when we talk about regard, Carl Rogers is going to talk about positive regard. And positive regard is going to be the warmth, affection, love, and respect that comes from significant others in one's life. So you have a good picture here of a mom and a child because, a lot of times parents offer positive regard to children. When we talk about conditional and unconditional positive regard, when we think of unconditional positive regard, it is given without condition or strings attached. I always like to associate this with unconditional love. Some people have unconditional love for other people where they love you and show that they love you, and there's no hook, there's no strings attached, there's no condition. I'll love you if you buy me this. No, they just love you. And you probably have your parents or adults or any type of significant other can be someone who has unconditional positive regard for you. A conditioned positive regard is positive regard that is given only when a person is doing what the providers of the positive regard wish. An example of this would be if you were in a relationship and your significant other, showed you love and affection when you bought them presents, or if you took them to dinner when they wanted to, or bought them things that they wanted when they wanted it, and then they wanted to be loving and show you warmth and affection in those moments. And Rogers is going to create these two: unconditioned positive regard and conditioned positive regard. When we talk about trait theory is going to be the fourth perspective dealing with personality. It is a consistent, enduring way of thinking, feeling, or behaving. You have a nice little cartoon here that guy's at the pharmacy and he says, can't you give him one of those personalities in a bottle? I keep reading about. So I feel like this picture is really funny. The thing about a trait is that it is consistent. So hold on to the fact that the word says consistent and enduring. It's not something, words like consistent and enduring mean that it's steady, it's stable. It's not going anywhere. So it's the way you think, you feel, and you behave. It's consistent and stable. Trait theories. They are theories that endeavor to describe the characteristics that make up human personality in an effort to predict future behavior. And if you look here, you have a trait theory wheel, which will show you introverted and extroverted. And it has lots of traits, being touchy, aggressive, excitable, moody, rigid, sober, pessimistic, passive, careful, thoughtful, peaceful. Things like these are all traits that can describe individuals. And a lot of these trait theories are implemented in the workplace and in school. I've taught you guys already that in American Eagle, we're broken up by colors. And each color has certain traits that those individuals fit into. Like Miss Cannon is a green at American Eagle, and I'm a social diplomat. So I love to be sociable. I like to sell. I like to dress people up, and I like to make friends with the customer. You have other people at work who are like yellow, who are more task-oriented and want to straighten, close, and fold and make tables look beautiful. While Miss Cannon is more of a green, a social diplomat who likes to engage with the customer. And these trait theories are implemented at American Eagle to help with, us being organized industrially so that we can all work together and that nobody is in a place where their traits don't line up. Gordon Allport, he is going to believe that there were 200 traits that were wired into the nervous system, and these traits guided a person's personality. Now, also, there will be the establishment of the Big Five. You have the Big Five personality traits dealing with, and it's called the 5-factor model. So you have openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, okay, which I will describe each one of these in the next slide. When we talk about the Big 5-factor model, it's a model of personality traits that describe 5 basic trait dimensions, and it is meant to represent the core description of human personality. And the mnemonic device is OCEAN. So when we talk about OCEAN, you have openness, which is the willing to try new things and be open to new experiences. Conscientiousness, which is the care a person gives to organization and thoughtfulness of others. So please correct the car to a care. Excuse me, I'm sorry for the typo. But when we talk about conscientiousness, the care a person gives to an organization and the thoughtfulness of other. When we talk about openness, it's you being willing to try new things like bungee jumping, open to new experiences, learning a new dance, going out on a dance floor when that's not really your thing, or traveling somewhere new where you've never been and you wouldn't have done it, but you're trying to be more open. Okay, conscientiousness is how thoughtful are you of others. If you have roommates, are you, thoughtful and think about picking up your clothes when you're around the apartment? Do you empty the dishwasher every once in a while? Things like that. And how well you're organized. It deals with conscientiousness. Are you organized in the workplace so that other people aren't cleaning up behind you? Do you make sure that you close your login out on the copier so people aren't making copies or your copies are running in somebody else's names? Examples like that. Are you thinking about other people? Are you thinking outside of yourself? Extroversion. Extroversion is going to be the dimension of personality referring to one's need to be with others. We're going to refer to being introvert and extrovert in a few minutes and a couple of slides. But your dimension of personality that your need to be around others. Do you like to sit by yourself, or do you love to be around people all the time? Do you got to go and hang out after work, or do you like to go home and read a book and in quiet, and not have anyone around you engaging you in conversation? We'll talk about agreeableness. This is the emotional style that can range from easygoing to unpleasant. When we talk about agreeableness, it's, the high parts of the characteristic is that, people, you're good-natured, you're trusting, you're helpful. The lower part could be like you could possibly be rude, uncooperative, irritable, aggressive, or competitive. When we talk about neuroticism, that, it's the degree of emotional instability or stability. You can be calm, secure, relaxed, or stable, or you could be worrying, insecure, anxious, or temperamental. Those are just words used to describe this type of characteristic or the factor. When we talk about, people who are excessive worriers, over anxious, and moody, they would score higher on the dimension of neuroticism, okay? When we talk about agreeableness, people who are easygoing and friendly, they're going to be higher on this scale. And people who are grumpy and crabby, they're kind of going to be on the lower end of agreeableness, okay? Which, if you look at the root word, it's agree. So are you down? Are you agreeing? Or are you disagreeing? Is what I always think about. When we talk about extroverts, it's people who are outgoing and sociable. Okay, so I have a great picture of the guy from the Gundam Style because he's very sociable and he loves to dance. And then you have Nicki Minaj, who's a socialite, and she's very outgoing and sociable in our society right now. Can't go anywhere without seeing her. And then I have introverts. Introverts are going to be people who prefer solitude and dislike being the center of attention, which you have Lord Voldemort and Gollum, which, these are a little bit, it's just, to poke fun a little bit. But introverted people are not necessarily people who are extremely antisocial, but they're people that prefer to be by themselves. Sometimes, they're down to be out with people, but a lot of times they like to go home and, read a book or watch television or do something that's, something that they can do on their own. These people are not going to be the first people to volunteer to get up to do a presentation. They're not going to be the people dancing on top of the bar or, on their birthday. They don't want you singing happy birthday if you're at a restaurant, okay? They just want their little cupcake and to go on about their business. Whereas if you go back and you talk about extroverts, they want to be, they enjoy the spotlight. They have no problem. A lot of people who are teachers, any type of public speakers, they are more extroverted people. They're more outgoing. They are sociable, okay? Also, when we talk about trait, situation, interaction, okay, it's going to be the assumption that the particular circumstances of any given situation will influence the way a trait is expressed, okay? So what you have to understand in this definition is that it's dealing with a particular circumstance, okay, of any given situation will come into play, and it depends on what's going on in the situation as to where and how the trait will be expressed, okay? This will be the conclusion for your notes this evening. Tomorrow we will talk about testing, personality testing. You're actually going to do a personality test. And also we're going to do our Rorschach ink blot t-shirts tomorrow. So I really appreciate you coming and checking out this presentation. This is going to help us get a little further in our class. Always remember that you can go further forward or backwards on this presentation. You can pause it at any time. Thank you.